Happy Wednesday, everybody. We're back for our third week looking at this great verse, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. So, we're talking about, Paul says here, therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we're wasting away, yet inwardly we're being renewed day by day. And the whole idea here is we don't want to lose heart. We want what it talks about there at the end. We want to be renewed day by day. And so I've given you this kind of image, this picture of a fuel gauge for our heart. And the idea is this is losing heart, being discouraged. And this is the natural tendency of our hearts is to run down. When we live in a world that seems filled with trouble and difficulties, and the tendency is to be discouraged, to lose heart. And what we want is we want to fill that fuel tank back up. We want to be encouraged. We want to feel renewed day by day. And so that's the promise of this verse, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. And we want to see how Paul can get to that point. And so back to the verse, we mentioned the conjunctions are really important here. And so it starts with the word therefore, which tells us that what comes before it, we need to pay attention to that. So that's what we looked at last week, verses 7 through 15. It talks about how God's power shines through when we're at our weakest. So we're vessels of clay. We're carrying around in our bodies the death of Jesus all the time. We're hard pressed. We're persecuted. But because of the resurrecting power of Jesus, because of the power of God at work in us, we get knocked down, but we get up again. We can keep going. So we can be encouraged. We don't lose heart because God's power shines through in our weakness. Now, I need to throw in the first word of verse 17 because there's a second conjunction here, for, because. And so not only does Paul want us to pay attention to the verses that come before, he's got something to say after this verse too that's going to help us to stay encouraged, help us to be renewed day by day. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look especially at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. So we don't lose heart. We can be renewed day by day, for, Paul says, our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So Paul says, really something amazing here. He says that we have trouble, right? Outwardly we're wasting away, but he can say that it's light, that the troubles that we're experiencing are not heavy, they're not burdensome, they're momentary, they don't last that long. Now this is an incredible thing for Paul to say, and please understand, he's not minimizing the trouble that you experience. He's not minimizing his own trouble. The things that he's talking about, the afflictions he's talking about, he's not talking about a mosquito bite. He's not talking about, waiting an extra 10 minutes in line at Walmart. He's not talking about that sort of thing. He's talking about persecution. He's talking about imprisonment. He's talking about being beaten for believing in Jesus Christ. He's talking about problems, illnesses that can last a lifetime, not a toothache, but maybe blindness or being paralyzed. So he's not saying that the troubles that you deal with are not difficult, not heavy, not long lasting, but what he is saying is that comparatively speaking, when you compare it to what's yet to come, that our light momentary troubles are actually achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. And you see, the word outweighs connected to the word light. The word eternal connected to the word momentary. The word glory connected to trouble. And he says, in comparison to what's coming, that those burdens that we face, they become light because of the weight of glory still to come. That the ongoing besetting problems that we wake up every morning and have to face down again seem momentary compared to an eternity of what's coming. That our troubles fade in the light of the glory that is to come. In fact, Paul says something amazing here. He says that these light momentary troubles are actually achieving for us this eternal glory that far outweighs them all. That in some way the burdens we bear, the difficulties that we face in this moment are setting the stage for us achieving in some way the glory, maybe enhancing the glory that is to come, because in comparison to the pain we experience now, the freedom and joy that is yet to come is so much better. And so verse 18, Paul says what we need to do is we need to fix our eyes not on what's seen. What is seen is this light, this momentary experience that we have. We need to fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what's unseen, on what's still coming, this glory yet to be revealed. Since what is seen is temporary, connected back to that word momentary, but what is unseen is eternal. It will last forever. I don't know if this illustration is something I'm even really permitted to share, because this isn't my experience. But I do compare this somewhat to the idea of a woman giving birth to a child. So again, I have no experience to relate to this. I'm not in a position to really comment on this, but it seems to me it's amazing that any woman would choose to have a child, and probably even more amazing that any woman would choose to have a second child, right? Because part of childbirth, the process of childbirth is this 9 months of discomfort, the pregnancy, carrying this child, and then we talk about the process of giving birth as labor, as a travail, the pain that's involved in giving birth. And you ask yourself, well, why would any woman go through that? Why would any woman be willing to face that? And the answer is because of the reward on the other side, the joy of holding a child, the delight that comes from bringing this new life into the world. And in that sense, I guess maybe a pregnant woman's, well, my light and momentary affliction, it's painful, it's labor, but it seems light. This momentary affliction, 9 months long, but it seems just a brief time compared to the weight of the glory that's to be revealed when this child is placed in her arms. And so in that sense, I think any woman who decides to be a mother is fixing her eyes not on what's immediately in front of her, this process of giving birth, but rather fixing her eyes on what's to come, this joy of having her child to call her own. And that's what these verses call us to do, to fix our eyes not on what we know now, but to fix our eyes on what's to come. And so we go back to our key verse, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. And we say we don't need to lose heart. We say we can be renewed day by day. Go back to our fuel gauge. We don't need to be discouraged. We can be encouraged because of what God promises us is yet to come. And so the big idea for these verses, I want you to be encouraged today. I want you to be encouraged even in the face of relentless trouble, because one, God's power is strongest when we're at our weakest. That's what we looked at last week. And two, because what's coming is so much better than what is now. And so fix our eyes on Jesus, because he is at work to show his power in us.